Thank you for tuning in for this next installation of Black and Bold Perspectives on Leadership. I'm Makia Moody, and I am thrilled to have this conversation today with Upendo Shabazz, Regional Vice President, Palm Beach for Allegany Franciscan Ministries. Hello, Upendo.
Hi, Makia. How are you?
I am maintaining. I am doing well in these interesting times. How about you?
Absolutely. I am doing well in these interesting times as well.
Great. So I'm so glad that you were available to have this conversation with me. I typically like to begin with a question about the current moment that we're in.
Okay.
And so as you are navigating the pandemics, which are COVID-19 and COVID-16-19, I am wondering if you've had a particular moment of reckoning, either personally or professionally.
Yes, I wouldn't call it so much a reckoning. It's just a intentionality around the work that I'm currently doing. And specifically, the work that I do is really to give people the power. But because of the pandemic, for the last couple of years, we've been working with community. I've been working with community and really creating the structure and the spaces for people to be empowered. But the pandemic has basically made that happen. Like I can't be in community right now because of the pandemic. So trusting everything that I have been working on the last couple of years, creating those structures, investing in local leaders that they are now going out there doing the work. And I don't have to manage that. I don't have to be on the ground with that. I'm trusting that it is happening. It's like, we walk by faith. So I'm faithful that this is happening. And so it's not so much reckoning, but just truly letting it go and knowing that the intention that we put in the work is happening. People are leading without us.
So you mentioned walking by faith, and that reminds me that Allegany Franciscan Ministries is grounded in faith. Could you speak a little bit about your organization?
Sure. Allegany Franciscan Ministries is a Catholic-based grant maker. We are an organization from the cell of the Franciscan Sisters of Allegany's hospitals back in 1998. So most people understand it as being a health conversion foundation. We don't necessarily sit like a foundation because of how we operate. We sit in the health system. And the money and income that we earn from the sale of our hospital allows us to make grants in the communities of where the hospitals were owned. So the Franciscan Sisters of Allegany came to Florida back in the 1920s. They opened hospitals in Miami and West Palm Beach and in Tampa in 1998. They divested of those properties. They were charity hospitals. So definitely when they sold, they had to pay the bills, and the income that came from the sale of those hospitals created this endowed fund that sits inside Trinity Health System, which allows us to make grants in those particular communities where the hospitals were. So definitely grounded in faith. Everything we do is really to engage people's spirituality, emotionality, their faith, and how they sit in their own communities. Surprisingly, that we fund more organizations that's not Catholic, but definitely have a ministry of their own. The sisters that we serve basically, served all people from all backgrounds. They have always been intentional about who they serve. They seek out the marginalized, they seek out the disadvantaged. And so the work that we do is really grounded in that. And one of the charisms of the sisters is walking by faith. We may not know what we're doing, but we're going to walk and it will happen.
Wow, that's powerful. So the work that you're doing now, I know that you've had lots of other experiences professionally, personally, et cetera. If there was a headline for your leadership journey, what would that headline be?
Wow, that's a really heavy question, right? For me, my leadership journey headline would say power at the bottom. Just because of I'm a social worker. I mean, a lot of people who meet me say, yeah, you definitely are a social worker. You know, I got my degrees in a bachelor's and master's in social work. I thought I wanted to be a therapist, Makia, but clearly that wasn't in my forecast just because how I work. And I believe in being honest and transparent. So me as a therapist wasn't the best because families weren't ready to hear what I had to say. And unfortunately, I brought a lot of my own upbringing into the therapy sessions. So that didn't also work out as well. But what I learned is that I was a great writer and I was great with relationships. So transitioning from direct services to then moving into a fundraising and then philanthropy. And so when I say, you know, power at the bottom is my leadership style. I've always tried to really power, not empower, but power those that are less fortunate. I mean, we can empower all the people we want, but if we don't give them power to utilize that empowerment we gave them, they're still stuck in the same place. You know, we can give everybody everything they need, but if we do not power where they are trying to go to, then it means nothing. It means nothing. We can provide all the wealth training, but if we're not willing to put money behind a small business owned by a minority, then that it's useless. We've empowered someone to still be stuck in the same place if we don't give them the power to move out of that place. So I've always been of the belief that if I'm in a position to help those to power from the bottom, that is why I'm here. That is the service I give. And then when I used to teach social worker students as well, is that when you are put in a leadership role, you know, my job is always to build that ladder to help people climb. And that should always be people's motivation in service.
I'm envisioning like an interesting logo that has some ignition or some fuel at the bottom of something. Great. So in thinking about the work you've done, you gave a little bit of insight related to, you know, being a social worker and a teacher formerly. I'm wondering, in those worlds, as well as your world in philanthropy, what are your favorite types of challenges? Because I know there must be some.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. You know, I think whether it's teaching, whether it's actually direct services, whether it's in philanthropy, the challenges for me is process. Any challenges that speaks to process, um, I see it as an opportunity. Definitely it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity in the context that, you know, when you figure why something isn't working, you know, when you go into community or when you're working with a nonprofit and or individuals, if you're mentoring or supporting young people, you always have to go to, okay, what is the issue? Is this something that can be worked out because the processes aren't in place? Or do we have to change behaviors in order for it to work? So challenges that speaks to processes and behaviors, I find inviting because those are opportunities to move the needle, you know. And I'll use an example with process. You know, most recently, I've been working on this project. It's called the Lincoln Park Career Pathways Initiative. And it has about 6 partners around the table. Now, the work that I do, I'm on the ground with the partners. I don't necessarily use an intermediary to do the work, meaning invest in the nonprofit to do the work for the foundation. We are literally on the ground with the partners, which also is challenging in itself because, you know, partners are like kids, you know, they don't want to necessarily get along together. And you don't want to force them, but you know that if they just get out of their own way, and remember that it's not about their individual organizations, it's about the service that we're trying to offer to a marginalized community, then that should be our goal. And so we have these partners together. This is a $1.2 million project. And when I tell you, Makia, it was all about the process. We were hitting a wall after wall after wall after wall. And finally, I said, okay, we got to figure out what's going on here. And it all centered on the process and the errors that was happening in the process. I actually brought in a facilitator who is good at solving processes. And now the partnership is rocking and rolling. And it was all about the process.
So you touched on some of the challenges
Mm-hmm.
that are your favorite types, and whatnot. And you mentioned that you're really good at building relationships, which I think is valuable, thinking about the work in the social sector
Mm-hmm.
specifically. And I'm wondering if you could share a time when your values were in tension, because I find that navigating those spaces to be challenging for me. And so I'm wondering about a time when your values were in tension and how you reconciled that tension or not.
I'll give you one that, I tell this story often, particularly when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, because, sometimes we always hear the flip part of that and not the other side of that. The assumption that is made because you are African American. So I got this wonderful job working at United Way. Um, this is my transition into fundraising, and I could raise money like nobody else's business. I don't know what it is. I can get people to get in their pocket and give me some money. I'm a good salesperson. That's the best way for me to say it. So the United Way that I work for, they actually created a fund. It was called the Diversity Equity Fund. And this was back in 2004. This fund was created. And I just started. I am not on the C suite, but I'm on the D suite in leadership. And only African American. And when they created this fund, they gave it to me. They said, "Oh, this is perfect for you." Okay, so you give me a fund, diversity, equity, fund. I'm a Black woman, so you made the assumption that I know exactly what I'm doing with diversity and equity at this time. Even before now, they were approaching fundraising around trying to raise money for Black people or raise money from Black people. So we're going to get this Black girl up in here to help us raise money because she knows how to raise money from Black people. And we need her because she can be the voice for our Blackness. So there was major tension because I was hired at the same time that this older Jewish white woman was hired, and her background was nothing but equity and inclusion. That was her experience, teaching, educating, all about that world. And they gave me this fund and not her, with the expectation that I'm going to educate the Black people in the community about United Way and I'm going to help them raise money. And so there was some tension there because, number one, I was new. So it really spoke to my my service to others. Like, how can I serve this community when I don't even feel comfortable about this topic because it's not my experience? Yes, I'm Black, but that don't mean that I know anything about diversity, equity, inclusion. you know? And then integrity. It's like, how can I get in front of these people and try to operate like I'm this know-it-all, and that I should be walking in these shoes because I'm Black. So, I remember that my very first meeting as being the Diversity Equity Fund manager, I remember sitting in the room with all these amazing, talented leaders, African Americans in the community, and they're looking at me and I'm looking at them like, okay, so we here. And at that time maybe I was 34, maybe 32. I was young. And I just remember just looking at them, they're looking at me, and I had nothing to offer them. And they actually, basically wrote a letter to the CEO, basically saying, we're not sure she's the right person. Right. Mm-hmm. And so he says, well, because he wasn't in the room, he left me in the room with them, and I just kind of said to him, and this is when the tension, I just started this job. I wanted to impress my boss. I wanted to impress the people that hired me. I wanted to be who they thought I would be. And I couldn't because my integrity and my service of how I want to serve people, it didn't sit right with me. There was a tension there. And I literally had to have this conversation with this man about, I'm not the best person. Actually, she's the best person for this job. And I had to have an honest conversation. I feel as though you identified me because I'm African American. And let me just tell you, I don't know any and all things about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm just because I'm Black, that doesn't give me the world on it. I don't know the world on it. So it was a good conversation to have. I'm glad I did have it because he basically shared with me that no one had ever been that honest with him. And I was like, I don't know how any other way to be. I mean, I should have been honest a lot sooner before this meeting started because I'm embarrassed and I've embarrassed the organization. But I couldn't move forward having that role, knowing that I wasn't the right person.
That's a powerful example and really resonates with me because I think so often people conflate or confuse lived experience with expertise in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And having been on this journey in the last year, 2 years for racial healing and unpacking different things in life related to race and my identity, it's been really eye-opening to realize there's a whole world out there that is very different from and expansive compared to growing up as a Black woman in New Hampshire.
Like, absolutely, I totally, agree. A lot of times they think that the African American community is monolithic, and we're not. Like we're not. We are probably more diverse than any other ethnicity when you think about it, especially when you look at the continent of Africa. And when we came over, all the different tribes, all the different, countries in Africa we came from, we are very much not monolithic whatsoever, So it was probably, when that situation happened, having that conversation with my boss, him and I, developing a really good relationship after that. Like from that point on, that man has always been my champion, and he's an older Jewish man. I often tell people I'm allergic to baby boomer white males, because I am. I really am. I got a baby boomer white male as my mentor, so yeah, I need it right now. But I say that because he's a Jewish male who is a baby boomer, but he has been my biggest champion. When we talk about leadership, my leadership development did not start, or let me rephrase that. My professional leadership development did not start until I started working for this man. This man provided every opportunity to me to hone, craft, and develop who I am today.
That's powerful. So the example that you gave about this former boss makes me think that you really had to amplify your voice, stand in your power, advocate for yourself, and be vulnerable in saying, I'm not the right one for this role. And so my question is, in thinking about how you did that and maneuvered through that situation, what advice would you offer other Black women who are trying to amplify their voice and become better self-advocates?
I would offer that no one can give you your confidence except you, number one. And until you are confident to have that conversation with your higher ups or whoever you feel that has the power, don't have that conversation. Because I think that's part of us standing in our power, is being confident. And confidence to me is knowing the end result could go this way or that way. And can you accept either or? And I'm not, when I think about the young people I mentor, I always tell them, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. And I say that because that speaks to a level of confidence, confident enough that I need to have this conversation. To stand in my power, I need to have this conversation, knowing that if I have this conversation, then this may happen negatively. Can I withstand that? If I can, I should move forward in that conversation, because in the end, whoever that I'm having this conversation with knows who I am. And they're either going to stand with me, stand beside me, or stand against me. and work against me. And wouldn't you rather know that than not know that? And you only know that is when you sit in your confidence and you move forward and having those hard conversations. And I've had some hard conversations. Some of them didn't turn out so well for me. But I was willing to stand in the paint and accept the responsibility of having that conversation. And if you can do that, that is how we as Black women continue to stand in the paint and move mountains, you know, however you want to say, Black girl magic. That's when Black girl magic happens.
I think that's a word or a little sermonette for someone who's going to listen to this conversation. Being able to stand in the pain on the way to the progress and really realizing that you are the one being that you don't want to disappoint. So it's fine to disappoint other people, but like having your grounding in the confidence that you have as an individual versus all of the external factors that may kind of weigh on us. So speaking of weight, I'm curious about your approach to self-care, given all of the demands on your time, the expectations for you personally, professionally, etc. What's your approach to self-care, and are there any rituals or practices that you use to survive and thrive?
Well, self-care. I mean, the only ritual I have, well, look, yeah, to answer your question, yes, yes, yes. My self-care is taking that time to myself, specifically, you know, when I don't have anything on my schedule, nothing on the weekends or in the evenings. I carve off time just to sit in silence, just to be in my head and think in silence. That to me helps me decompress my day. Um, that's one piece, and that's more emotional and mental self-care. And then physically, what I realize is that when I'm not physical, my spirit is depressed. And I refuse to be on medication, even though, we are a medicated society. I refuse to be on any mood altering medication. When you know what your body is, and when you sit in your body, you recognize those things that is beneficial to your body, you should do that. And for me, I need to be physical. I literally have to be physical every morning in order for my emotions, my physical self, my being to be well. Because when I don't, it's just something that depresses my mood. And I made the connection probably a couple of years ago that every time that I worked out, I just had such a much better mood. And when I didn't work out, I was a depressed mood. It's like Michelle Obama said, lowly depressed, that low depression. That's exactly what I felt. And it only happens when I don't work out or don't do anything physical. So I find that for me, self-care is being physical. I do a lot of running, walking, working out with weights. I just bought some roller skates. Like I'm doing everything. I play tennis. I try to get something physical done because I need to move. So, yeah, for me, self-care is being physical and then taking that moment and really just sitting and decompressing my day. And every now and then, a glass of wine doesn't hurt.
You've got a long list. You had me at roller skates. It was so lovely to chat with you. Do you have any closing words for the Black women that tune in to Black and Bold that you want to leave on their minds and hearts before we wrap up?
I just want them to know that they're not alone, and to ask for help, because we don't ask for help. Um, I think that's important to say. I don't like to ask for help. So in my mind, I don't I don't use that terminology, ask for help. Um, in my mind, if I need help, I just reach out to my network and say, hey, what's going on? Can I just trouble you for a moment to help process this with me? Or do you have a moment to talk with me? But I don't see that as help. It's like talking to someone I trust. But we need to do more of that. We as Black women, we're unique in this space. We're very unique. We have an opportunity to give in ways in which our white counterparts cannot give. And it's by way of our experiences and our ability to serve our community the way that we believe they should be served. And so ask for help, lean on your sisters. You'll be surprised that if you ask for help, well, when you ask for help, how many people will respond? Don't be afraid to go outside of your box, to ask for help, because we all need help. We are not here alone, and we should not be working by ourselves in the work that we do.
Yeah, power in numbers, power in community.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for making time to speak with me. I pray that you have a transformative and impactful week ahead.
And you the same, Makia, you the same.